started from a really unique approach as a graduate student design project, which is unlike other projects and other companies we've had on the show. So could you share a little bit about how that got started?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's a bit of an unconventional founding story. My co-founder and I met at Stanford at a design school class called Design for Extreme Affordability. And in this class, students from different departments at the university are partnered with an international NGO to apply the human-centered design principles that we are taught to the challenges that they're solving in the communities that they work around the globe. So we were partnered with the marine conservation NGO RARE. They work in the Philippines, and they were looking to us to work with them on developing cold chain solutions for artisanal fisherfolk. So that's the first thing that brought us to the Philippines and the first place where we got started. We lived with fisherfolk and their families immediately after graduating. We moved to an artisanal tuna fishing village called Lubang Island. And essentially, we were there to design better coolers. So we would go out fishing with them. We would follow their catch around from the moment that it was caught and taken out of the sea to the boat trip, the jeepney, the ferry, all the way until it reached the markets or restaurants in major cities like Manila, where it was going to be consumed by the end consumer. And so through that process, we saw that the main product being used in these seafood supply chains was styrofoam and styrofoam coolers. And we saw all the ways in which these styrofoam products were failing users. And not just that, but also all of the piles of plastic trash and styrofoam beads that were floating around, and essentially they're stacking up on land, or we were even finding them out at sea when we were going on those fishing trips. So, we saw a problem there, both from a user experience and also from an environmental pollution point of view. And at the same time, we found out that just nearby in coconut farms around the Philippines, there was another massive source of waste. So the Philippines is one of the world's largest coconut producers, and coconut husks are the leftover waste of this coconut oil and coconut water industry. And they accumulate on piles at the farms and end up being burned by the billions. But as they say, waste is only waste if you waste it. So we started experimenting with these husks, and soon enough we realized that coconut fibers are actually naturally insulating and excellent at that. And since then, all of our new cooler designs have incorporated this new insulation material.
I love that expression. I've never heard it. Waste is only waste if you waste it. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's great.
So on the topic of waste, certainly Nutshell Coolers looks at both the environmental side, which kind of has that classic waste component, and then the social side as well. Could you help us maybe understand a little bit deeper on the environmental side to start with, as to what does that look like from an environmental impact for the classic cooler industry, if you will, and then what approach has Nutshell Coolers taken?
Yeah, so I was mentioning the issue that we saw with styrofoam in seafood cold chains. But the issue is not just in seafood, it's not just in cold chains. Really, the insulation market globally is dominated by styrofoam or products like styrofoam, essentially other forms of plastic foams. And that's also true in insulated outdoor gear, unfortunately, which is kind of counterintuitive because the people who participate in outdoor recreation are usually the people who are most concerned about environmental degradation, and I'm sure people who care the most about being really conscious about the materials that we're choosing and using in our products. But when you walk into any outdoor retailer, you're essentially surrounded by plastic products. That's just the reality. And it's that way for a reason. Plastics have been designed to have all of these great performance-oriented qualities, like being waterproof or being insulating in this case. And that means that it's the default material for most brands. But actually, there's a lot of upcycled, recycled, and natural alternatives that can match, if not outperform, plastics. So at Nutshell, we have a different approach where we think of nature as essentially our deep tech lab R&D. and we enjoy the fruits of its labor, literally. So if you think about it, coconuts are the original cooler. They've been keeping water fresh in the tropical heat for centuries. And so there's a lot to learn there. And that's what it comes down to for us. We are building better products with better materials. Um, yeah, we like to say that we are designing products that last decades, but not millennia.
That's really interesting. And even in perusing your site, it seems like your liner has environmental considerations as well. And just if you can help, I mean, certainly we're going to encourage everybody to go check out what it looks like, but if you could explain that component as well.
Yeah, that's right. So coconut fiber is our insulation material, but there are other components that go into making a finished product like a cooler. And so we have sourced other upcycled and recycled materials, including recycled plastics, to make sure that there's a lot of thought and thoughtfulness into every component of the final product.
And this thoughtfulness definitely extends to the social side. And I think this is a big part of how Nutshell Coolers came to be. Could you share a little bit more about how you work with your suppliers in bringing this finished product to light?
Yeah, yeah. A big part of our mission at Nutshell is to connect people to the makers behind their gear. And we feel that we have a really unique opportunity to do so because our material really has a very cool and unusual story of both, the way that we source it and the impact that is embedded into this material. So, as I mentioned, our raw material is leftover coconut husks, and we actually buy these husks directly from smallholder farmers in the Philippines and farmer cooperatives. And what that means is that we are providing them with additional income. So we're literally turning something that was trash for them into an additional source of income, into money for these rural communities all over the Philippines. And it's not just that. These piles of coconut husks, as I mentioned, were previously burned as waste. And that was happening at the farms, and it
Mhm.
releases unhealthy smoke for the farmers and their families, and it also emits CO2 emissions. So we're avoiding that as well. And then secondly, we also process our fibers and create our insulation panels within the coconut farming community. So that means that we're creating rural jobs and professional development opportunities in some of the poorest regions of the Philippines. And yeah, this is a model that we will continue to grow. We envision replicating this model in different geographies and continuing to partner with farmers and agricultural cooperatives to give agricultural waste a second life.